Okay, I will call the Southbury Board of Selectmen meeting October 17th, 2024 to order at 7 PM here, room 205. And if we could have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First up is Emergency Management is here, Steve Schnell. If we could just give the board a kind of an update about all the wonderful things that are happening.
Yep. As of your last meeting, I believe it was on the 19th of September, we've been nonstop with FEMA and the SBA and our town recovery, both Public Works, my office, the Fire Marshal's office, the fire department. Everyone's been all hands on deck trying to get us back to where we were on August 17th. A FEMA Disaster Recovery Center, we refer to that as a DRC, was opened on the other side of this wall on October 2nd. They continue to provide information, application assistance to anyone who had damage to their home or business from this disaster. Affected residents can apply either by coming down to here and sitting with FEMA representatives and Small Business Administration representatives. There's hazard mitigation representatives all housed next door. So residents can come down. It's a one-stop shop. They can show up with all of their documentation, whether it's on their phone or on paper. They have the technology and the capability to scan that in, add their application, put it right in for them. They also, you can go on disasterassistance.com or .gov, and fill out your application there. The one caveat to that is we recognize there was a lot of driveways that were affected because of the storm. Anyone out there that is listening, if you have not submitted your application and you're doing it online, there is a checkbox that if it's just your driveway that you're claiming, you need to check off the box that says there was damage to your home. That if you don't check that box, your application will be denied because they're saying there's no damage to your home. That is the FEMA workaround for that process. Anyone that is denied has the ability to appeal any of their decisions up to 5 times. We've been telling everyone that calls, if you get an appeal or you get a letter or notification back from FEMA and you don't agree with the amount that they have offered, or you get a denial on all or a portion of what you're claiming, come down to the DRC, talk with the FEMA representatives. They will walk you through the entire appeal process and show you, it may have just been something that didn't get submitted the right way. There's a lot of formality that goes into those applications. I know one of the feedback comments we got when we had the canvassing groups out was that in order to apply, you had to supply your Social Security number. We did spend a morning up in the village explaining that to their residents, because nobody wants to give out their Social Security number, not in today's day and age. So we explained how that process works. Once you fill out that application process, then a FEMA number is generated to you. And that's how the rest of the process goes through, utilizing that number, not your Social Security number. The deadline to apply for FEMA assistance is going to be November 19th. So that's that 60-day window from when the IA was approved. FEMA will be here, boots on the ground, until November 19th. You can apply, like I said, either using disasterassistance.gov. There's a 1-800 number. There's an app that you can use, or you can come down to the DRC. All of that information is currently on the town website. We get lots of calls. We're directing everyone to get their information directly from there. I average between 10 and 15 phone calls a day explaining this process to residents, not only from Southbury, but all of New Haven County, Litchfield County, Fairfield County. Right now, our Disaster Recovery Center is the only one that is stood up in the state of Connecticut. So we are seeing residents from all over the Western Connecticut coming here to fill out that and ask questions. As we were talking before, one of the the highlights of our day is listening to, they come in thinking there's going to be some adversarial, I want this, I'm not going to get this. And as we're seeing these residents from not only Southbury, but all over Western Connecticut coming out of the room next door to us with either smiles on their face or expressing their pleasure with the service that they received from these FEMA representatives. None of them are from Connecticut. A lot of them are from down south, and as we all know, they are dealing with their own disasters down there as well. But they're providing a service, and everyone that's coming out has, not had a bad thing to say. Obviously, everybody wishes they would fund everything that they lost, but that's just, obviously not possible. So, kudos to them. I really need to push out to the staff here at Town Hall, taking half of this room and rearranging, to Betsy and Noreen in the First Selectman's office and Jeff. We've all been able to adapt and move things around to accommodate having them here. It took a little while to get everybody rearranged and move things around, but the staff and everyone here in Town Hall has been inconvenienced a little bit. Adding 12 more people onto this floor, and a break room, a lunch room, people in and out. But it definitely has been an eye-opening experience for a lot of people. We are currently working with the Connecticut DEMA staff and the FEMA advance teams because we were notified last Friday that the DRC and the early voting cannot be in the same building. So we are working. Today we found a place. We're just working on the logistics of that. So we're hoping within the next day or so we'll have that announcement of where these guys will move to for that 2-week period of early voting. It will be here in Southbury, and it looks right now it'll stay on Main Street somewhere. So as soon as that is all confirmed, we will push that out. We'll make sure that goes out on the town website, all of our social media, and make sure we'll have people here to make sure that if somebody is showing up, that where they can be directed to for that time period while early voting is going on in this room. The FEMA canvassing teams. So this was a group of 7 individuals that started here in Southbury the other one. They started on September 25th, and they were here for about 2.5 weeks. And the graphic that's on the screen is the 2,453 residents that they walked to. So they went to a neighborhood, got out of their cars, and they went and knocked on doors. So I'll say that again, 2,453 doors they knocked on and talked to residents, not just knocked on the door. They spent 2.5 weeks here. On top of the number of residents, they also communicated with 104 businesses, 12 houses of worship, 7 community-based organizations, and 2 government agencies in a 2.5 week period. We did have a few interactions that got pushed back to us, people just not happy that they were knocking on their doors. Some of our neighboring communities had some bigger issues with those teams knocking on doors. Those were all addressed. We've all seen the news of some stuff that happened down south with those teams. So we are taking that into consideration. The last few days that they were out canvassing, our PD was notified. We did publish on social media what roads they would be on to try and get, they were finishing up their canvassing. They had a list of 12 or 13 roads that they were still set to go out and canvass. So we just gave everyone a heads up of where they were. We did get a lot of communications back on people that said, hey, they didn't stop at my house. So that's where, once we pushed that out, we explained to them that, they may have knocked on your door, you just weren't home. They met here in Town Hall at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they came back about 6, 7 o'clock at night, stopping an hour for lunch. Other than that, they were out knocking on doors. They knocked on my door. They were very pleasantly surprised when I opened the door, and they said, hey, I know you. So again, kudos to those 7 individuals. Again, not from anywhere in the Northeast. They did say we have a lot of hills. weren't used to that. So road-wise, As we were talking before the meeting, Old Waterbury Road opened last Friday. Route 67 is days away from opening. They have the bridge in place, they've paved it, they're working on some guardrail installations, and then they have to paint and stripe the roadway. So we're anticipating within the next few days that will be open. That will take a lot of pressure off of Community House and the residents over on that area of town. Our police department has their speed sign out there. We pulled the data for a 15-day period, and we were looking in just under 180,000 cars in a 15-day period. So 67 is a very heavily traveled road, and a lot of that traffic has now gone down on Community House. We do have still currently in place a tractor trailer detour. If you've been over to Community House, it doesn't necessarily work. Hopefully that will be alleviated in the next few days. The Small Business Association is embedded with the DRC here. They also have a separate office down in Oxford for businesses to go to. So the SBA not only deals with small business, but they also offer homeowners low interest loans for disasters. So they are embedded with the DRC. When we move to the temporary location for early voting, they will move with them. And then they will come back here to finish out the application period. Back to some roads. Oldfield is still currently closed. That all residents can access their homes using their current driveways. We are working with some of the public utilities to make sure that all gas and electric is back on and functioning the way it's supposed to be. Connecticut Water has worked on the water main that was over there and essentially deadheaded it on either side of where the closure is. So we will be working with them to make sure that there's no issues as we get into the colder temperatures. Eversource Gas has put in a temporary sleeve where that is now exposed by the waterway. So they will be making any preparations they need to do as we get into the colder months. Kettletown Road, we were notified about a week and a half ago that the section of Kettletown Road that was damaged during the storm was temporarily fixed. They had taken the culvert that washed away and put it back in place, reset it, and paved over the top of that. The engineers from DOT have determined that in order to properly fix that section of roadway, they need to put wing walls and head walls in and a true actual culvert in there, not just the corrugated metal pipe. So that work began today. It is about a quarter a mile north of Burr Road, so it will not impact any of the voting at the Calvary Church. There's approximately 25 or 27 residents their detour will be up Burr Road to Jacob down to Jeremy Swamp, and then as 67 opens, they'll be able to exit onto 67 that way. At the same time, Dayton Construction will be the contractor for the project on Kettletown. They were awarded the contract for George's Hill Road, where that bridge and culvert is going to have to be replaced as well. So in the conversations that we had, we asked them what the deal was with that. They're waiting on a design plan from DOT, but they will start, because they're kind of stuck in the middle of both. They're going to start some of the work down on George's Hill while they are still working on the Kettletown Road. So that detour is approximately 1 month that they're saying. They're hoping to have that open back up by November 17th, I believe it is, or 16th. But that should not impact anything with the voting at the Calvary Church on Election Day. Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development Commission launched the micro grant program to assist small businesses and nonprofits in New Haven, Fairfield, and Litchfield counties to recover from the flooding event. Grants up to $25,000 were distributed to cover various expenses varying from cleanup to replenishing lost inventory, replacing equipment. Many Southbury businesses and nonprofits took advantage of this. opportunity, and some were actually awarded a full amount of $25,000. It ranged anywhere from $2,000 up to $25,000 that were pushed out. So we did have a tentative list that kept coming in. They did reach out to both myself, our economic development director, our town assessor's office, tax office, to kind of go through that process of how many businesses we had, how many were eligible. So all of that information we communicated back and forth with the state to administer those grants and get all that up and running. There will be a community support group for adults and children on Tuesday, October 22nd from 6:30 to 8 o'clock, hosted by SMART in collaboration with Main Street Counseling and the Southbury Parks and Recreation Department. So what they're doing is they're offering counseling. Anyone that was affected by the flood can come. They're going to have different activities for kids. They'll have separate areas for the kids to be able to talk to either a counselor or have different activities while their parents sit and have that. It can either be a one-on-one, it can be a group effort. We're trying to put that out there to give people an avenue to deal with everything that's going on. Jeff and I met with all of the town clergy about 2 weeks after the event. And one of the big topics on that was mental health, and reaching out and making sure that we want to make sure that nobody's falling through the cracks. And that's why the FEMA canvassing teams were here. We know when we looked at Crisis Track that we had 715 entries in there. We knew some people just didn't do it. And that was, if we knew there was one house on a road, they went and knocked on every house on the road. Just to make sure that everyone had the opportunity, everybody knows how to do it. They provided us with a lot of the social media campaign information that we've put out. FEMA has been a good partner to deal with. Our Connecticut Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security staff, we have daily, sometimes multi-times a day phone calls. A lot of the information that we're getting definitely changes on an hourly basis. And trying to find a space for the DRC to set up was not as easy as we thought. They have a lot of requirements. There's a lot of security concerns. They check Wi-Fi. They check the number of outlets, access, egress, ADA compliance. They have an entire security team that comes. There's an entire team of people that literally come and measure down to the quarter of an inch the size of the room and how they can set that up. So that team has been here a lot. And then it's ongoing. So every 3 to 4 days, their safety officer comes. He comes up to my office. We sit down. If there's any safety concerns that the staff here bring up, they're brought to our office. I will tell you that normally it's a cup of coffee and we're talking about where he's from or what place they can go in Southbury to eat. So the concerns that we're hearing are not anything that need to be addressed immediately. They are saying a lot of the residents that are coming in, like I said before, they're coming in kind of like bewildered of this whole process, and the staff that is here is literally spoon feeding them the information and getting them on their way. Some people we've seen here 3 or 4 times. Just making sure that every piece of information that they can supply is being supplied to them. They are, I know we've been kind of beat up in the media lately with SBA and FEMA being out of money. That was addressed yesterday at a press conference with Senator Blumenthal out on Oldfield Road. Currently, there will be a period of time that residents can still apply for SBA loans. They will sit in a pending state until Congress refunds the SBA. Unfortunately, it was I announced it today that the Senate Majority Leader down in D.C. is not going to recall Congress to make those funds available before Election Day. But that being said, you can still apply. So if anybody is out there listening and you have not done it yet and you're going to, please apply for the SBA low interest loan. Still come down to the DRC, go online, fill out your applications. They're still sending inspectors out. The timeline is usually 24 to 48 hours after your application is accepted. An inspector will come to your house. They will go through your damage. They will go through your estimates, your invoices. They will help you go through and upload all of that information. If they are comfortable with it, they will have you upload your bank account information for direct deposit. And usually within 24 to 48 hours after you accept their offer for assistance, the money is transferred. Jeff and I had a conversation with an individual a few days ago, was absolutely astounded by the fact he talked to the guy on Sunday, and Monday afternoon he had, the money was deposited into his account. So these are the success stories. I know there's stories out there of people that are just not happy with the amount that FEMA offered them. What we've been telling everyone is you have the option to appeal what they offered you up to 5 times. So that appeal process does take time, but just because the registration period ends does not mean you can't continue to appeal.
So what I do want to back up to is Oldfield Road and the bridge, and and part of the reason why it's not being addressed. Number one, people can get in and out. They can get to their homes. It's not it's inconvenient, but it's not impossible. But that is in the design phase for replacement. So it makes absolutely no sense to do something when it's in the design phase. I think it's already in the bridge program. So we might just as well let that flow and get that done, do it correctly in the design phase. That's part of the reason why that's not being touched right now. Because you'd be building a bridge anyway. So again, what we're going to do is, rather than do a temporary fix, it'll just be replaced with a bridge that will last and stand up.
Is there a timeline?
We don't have a timeline on the bridge, the design side.
So with this we are still waiting for the public assistance declaration from Washington, D.C. So that request has been made by the governor's office. So we are still waiting for that. So in the meantime, a lot of the projects, a lot of these repairs that we are in need to do, in order to qualify for FEMA public assistance, we have to go through our town purchasing policies. We have to go through the bid process, the RFP process. We have to document all of that, because if we don't follow our own policies, then they can come back and say it's not covered under what that reimbursement would be. So because that bridge culvert is already scheduled to be done, we had Blake and Jeff and I had long conversations with the FEMA PA teams when they were here looking at all the damage, about what the best avenue to do, and as they said, continue the process that we're doing now. And if the PA declaration does come back, that may speed up the process a little bit more. But we need to continue the process of, following our policies and procedures for everything that we do for purchasing and doing all the bids, the RFPs, and not changing anything because of the disaster.
So to that point, one of the things we're working on is also the library to get that back up and
Yes.
running. But that process is involving hiring the right people. You have to go out to bid for that, to then give you the proper paperwork, what the job is and what has to be done, so we know what the complete thing, and then go out for proposals on that or requests. Then we have to, one of the things we're going to do here tonight later on is we're going to have put up for a joint meeting, Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and set a town meeting to start appropriating the money it's going to take to fix the library and some other stuff. We don't have the money in the queue to do that, so we'll get to that later.
So the library, the floodwaters and the debris, all of that has been cleaned out of the library at this point. We were actually over there today with our Public Works Department, moving some of the shelving and stuff that was able to be cleaned and salvaged, moving that out of storage back inside. So work is being done over there. Unfortunately, it's all of the mechanicals, all of the networking, all that stuff was all in the basement. And that's where, following the town procedures for, large projects, we need to follow that to the T, and make sure that we are crossing our T's and dotting our I's, with the hope that the PA declaration will come through, and then that would be a reimbursable expense for the town.
What mitigation company is doing that work? And I think a lot of people are concerned with the humidity in there.
So ServPro was the company that came in and did all of the debris removal. Currently we have 2 or 3 dehumidifiers running, industrial size dehumidifiers running. I was in there yesterday. The humidity levels are at 42%. There are fans running. So we are aware of those concerns. The library staff is here in town hall. So I'm talking to them on a regular basis. We're working with them to make sure that if there's equipment over there or supplies that they would need to continue their programming, stuff like that, we're making arrangements. Either myself or the fire marshal will go over there and get those things for them. There is a lot more than just what is on the surface. So the electrical system has to be looked at. The fire alarm system has to be looked at. There's a lot of all the mechanicals, everything in the basement that had 5-6 feet of water, has to be essentially evaluated and figured out what truly needs to be replaced, what can be fixed, and then how do we go about doing that. And each step has to be in conjunction with all of the other procurement regulations that we have. Dan Colton and we talked to FEMA. We talked to, there's a Dana Conover from the state of Connecticut. He is, I guess you call him the guru for FEMA reimbursements. He cited off a bunch of codes in the federal regulations. Dan and I had a conversation. He goes, "Yep, it's already incorporated into our bidding and procurement policies." So we're where we need to be. Unfortunately, this process does take some time. So we continue to work on it. I'd love to be able to sit here and say, hey, in 6 months, but right now we need to figure out exactly what we need to do, what that's going to cost, and then put that out to bid to get that process rolling.
So just, Tim, just to let you know, and please bring this back to the people who are concerned about mold. We had the atmosphere in the library proper where the books were. We were constantly monitoring the humidity level. We had dehumidifiers in that floor. We had air circulating with fans, and we were monitoring it.
And they also brought in, they did an air quality test after everything was cleared out of there, and that all came back fine.
Good.
So as far as the first floor and the second floor, the like I said, it was 42% when I was in there yesterday. I try to make it once or twice a week over there just to walk through and make sure that a fan didn't get knocked over somehow or whatever it is. But everything is circulating in there. Unfortunately, it's just we've got to follow the process that FEMA has set up and that we have set up here to make sure that we do it right so that we qualify for the PA when it comes through.
And for the artwork and all the things upstairs and all the books, it was the proper thing just to shelter it in place, protect it, which we did the first week. We started protecting it. So everything, once we get heat and get everything back running, it shouldn't be an issue getting back upstairs. It's just a matter of,
Correct.
We should be fine. Anything else?
Yeah, Steve, well, first off, thank you. Thanks for all the work you've been doing over the last couple of months and for the update tonight. The two things I was going to ask about, you talked about at the end here, the two biggest questions I get from people are Old Field Road, when that's opening, and the library. And the first is the concern about you know, the humidity and damage and whatnot, and, you know, I'm able to address that. But then the follow-up question is, when are we opening the library? And I tell people it's a priority, but it's a process. It takes time, and there's a lot of things that need to be done. I just think it would be helpful, maybe for a subsequent meeting, to have, I understand there's not going to be specific timeline available right now, but sort of like have like general ideas of what those steps are, like presented, like these are the things that need to be done. And it's, you know, some maybe time range or whatnot, so we can start communicating that to the public as to, yes, we are addressing it, it is important, and these are the steps that we need to follow, and these are the things that have to happen for the library to open, and to explain why Oldfield Road isn't open. Like, I think that makes sense. But, you know, again, where is that in the bridge program? When was it set to be, you know, replaced? And, you know, what are we looking at right now? Like, if that was, you know, is that in the coming year? Is that some other time? Like, what is that? So we could have an understanding of what's going to happen down there. Because those are two questions do come up repeatedly.
So that bridge was slated to, or culvert bridge was slated to be done in this upcoming spring anyway.
Okay.
So the design phase, again, Blake can talk to this better than I can, but that it was already in the beginning stages of being designed. We have asked to kind of expedite that design process, given what happened. So after speaking with FEMA and letting them see what the damage was out there, you know, how do we proceed with this? Do we, as Jeff said, do we put in a temporary structure to tear that down to fix it again? What would FEMA cover, right? So that was the question. Their answer is to follow your bidding and procurement policy. So when we look at it and say, is it worth spending $500,000 to put something temporary in that we may not get reimbursed for, to then tear that all out and put in, you know, what we were planning on doing? It's, you know, so without that PA declaration, we have to sit down and try and figure that process out. So their advice was to continue on the process in the process that we're in right now, as far as the design and moving forward as it goes. That may change if, for whatever reason, they come back and say, "Hey, we're gonna fully fund it. Go ahead and do it now."
So to explain some of the difficulties with coming up with a timeline, when I was talking to United Concrete at a Council of Small Towns meeting, and United Concrete was there, and we were talking about this, about how long it takes. Their problem is right now, they're doing box culverts and bridges, and they only have a certain capacity to build and make these. So already, if you had to design, so you said, okay, now where are we in the queue to get this materials built? Now we find out what was 3 months could be 5 months. So we really don't know where that timeline will set under a normal condition. So it's not trying to make excuses for not knowing specifically what the timeline. The trouble in the library is supply chain, 2 furnaces, a chilling tower. These would have to be built. Can you get them? What's the supply time for them? And until you have the specifications, you can't determine how long it's going to take. It's not like going to the local, getting a new oil boiler for your house. It's not sitting there. They will be building these. So is it compatible with the other controls you have there? So until we know that, it's really difficult to put a specific timeline. I could say, if I was to say something safely, I'd say probably in less than a year and a half for the library. Do I think it's going to be less than that? Possibly. But I have no way to judge. It's very difficult to get a timeline from Public Works, who's managing these projects, because they don't have, they just don't know. It could be all of a sudden 3-4 months before you can get a furnace built. And until we know the specifications, and the extent of the work, there's no way to give the timeline. So that's part of our problem and difficulty. So I'm hoping people will be understanding about that. This is a big challenge.
Yeah, I think people understand that a specific timeline is difficult, but I do think it would be helpful to communicate to the public what those steps are, like
Yeah.
outlining, this is why it takes time.
We can do
and-
that.
And these are the things that need to be done, and the steps that are, and the things we are doing. Because there are a lot of questions about the library. The other question I had for you is, assuming there is a PA declaration, which I think is a safe assumption, Community House Road is, certainly wasn't designed for 180,000 cars every couple weeks. Does that become part of the claim, even though, like,
Yes.
because of the movement?
I'm going to be
over
very
that road?
blunt, yes.
Okay.
So when we met with the PA teams, when they came out, one of the concerns that Blake had brought up was, we're going to have to probably do some extensive work on Community House because of the detour that will be lumped into that PA number. So I'll take just a few minutes and explain the PA. Once that PA declaration is done, a FEMA representative will be assigned to the town of Southbury that will sit down with Blake, myself, Jeff, Dan, and go through all of the information that we have been giving them already, dollar amounts, locations, all that stuff. They will essentially gather all that information, and they will be our dedicated liaison for that process throughout the PA. And Betsy in the back. So that process, they will be here, boots on the ground, for at least the first few weeks to get all of that information, and go through and help the town put all of that together into one essentially one report to go back and ask for the funds for the reimbursements and any invoices. Obviously, if we get the PA in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, obviously there's work that we need to get done. Public Works will tell you, I mean, they literally, excuse my French, busted their rear ends for the last, month and a half, 2 months to get to where we're at right now. A lot of those fixes are temporary, and we know that they're going to have to go back and fix those roadways the right way and put the right material back in. So all of that will be incorporated into our PA plea for assistance once that disaster is declared down in DC. So just real quick on, Jeff brought up the supply line issues. We have been talking with a lot of the residents that had issues with their driveways. We were talking to a resident the other day. Based on what they are trying to do to fix their driveway, they've already been told 8 to 10 weeks to get the material to even start the project. So we're talking another 2.5 months. We're now into sometime December, maybe early January before they're even going to start work, and they cannot get to their houses currently, right? So, the supply chain that we're dealing with, our individual residents are out there dealing with as well. All of the residents that we're communicating with have filled out the FEMA application. They are on the radar. They are, they have housing assistance. There's other means that are coming in. Right now, anyone that has been displaced, we are aware of those, and they do have a place to live. So we're not, we don't have anybody living out of their cars or whatever. That has been told to us. So anyone that has come to us with any kind of issues, we have been able to either mitigate them or find assistance for them, either through FEMA, through the Needy Fund, the Women's Club, social services. So we've been able to really make sure that we're trying to meet all of the needs for the residents.
Frankly, pretty miraculous work that's been done in a short period of time. And again, Steve, you've been coordinating this. We're recognizing the importance of emergency management director in the full-time, because the amount that it would take to get this all done and coordinated, the software that's been implemented, everything we've done, to some unfortunate degree makes it look easy, but it is not. It looks smooth, it looks organized, it looks like we're getting there. A little bit of patience, we'll get there. and a little inconvenience. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be the way it was before the storm in any recent coming up. It's going to take a time, but we're doing pretty good, I think. We're doing pretty good. A little inconvenience, but all in all, not a bad situation compared.
So I will just close with, Senator Blumenthal at his press conference here yesterday did announce that they are going to propose legislation to amend the Stafford Act, which is the funding avenue for FEMA and SBA and disasters, to allow for building back better and making the repairs that we are trying to do more resilient. How long that will take, I don't know. But one of the things that Jeff has had multiple conversations with our senators and our congresswoman is that we don't want to just build it back. We want to build it back and make it more resilient. So that is being heard. How long that takes to make those amendments to the Stafford Act, I don't know. But they are going to propose those changes. So hopefully those will come through. Obviously, they don't affect us right this minute, but we all know the next disaster is just around the corner. So I did have a full head of hair before August 17th, so I don't know about that. So thank you all. And again, if there's ever any questions, feel free to reach out to my office. I'll be more than happy to, if we have information, to give that out. All of the information that we're getting, we're putting on our social media. We're putting it on our website. We're trying to make that, like I've said before, a one-stop shop. All of this information is currently available. The graphs that we put up, we will push those out so people kind of see, where FEMA went and walked around town for 2.5 weeks. So with that.
Thank you, very informative.
Thank you. I just want to, for the record, we do have Jason Van Stone, who's remote, and Holly is remote, listening in. So just for the people to know. Next up is public comment. I understand nobody's here for public comment. You have your announcements and correspondence in front of you. You have the reports. Then we come to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tim. Any discussion on the consent agenda?
I would just like to acknowledge members of our fire department who are here. Whenever this board, since I've been on it, makes any expenditure related to the fire department, they are always represented when we have those meetings, and on our consent agenda is an agreement regarding a purchase of a fire truck. So I thank you guys for being here, and thank you.
Love having you here.
And thank you for your service to the community.
Thank you.
I'll call the vote because of the time. Oh, sorry.
The vehicle purchase, we're purchasing 3 vehicles for fleet purposes.
For what?
Put your mic on.
On the vehicle purchase, we're purchasing 4 vehicles, 3 of them for fleet purposes. What,
That's the first selectman's vehicle.
one of them, there's 3 others.
In our vehicle replacement plan, we have an old vehicle out there for, one is an old Crown Vic that was being run by our assistant building inspector,
Okay.
and it's just
Yeah, yeah.
shot. Then there was another one for the 3rd floor for land use inspection that's shot. There was another one. So what we're looking to do with the vehicles is to place them in service here with, if we are to get a notice someone needs to use it to park and rec for doing something, they will come to my office and check the vehicle out so that they have access. And another reason what we're doing with this is there's been some requests by the senior services. They have buses enough, but sometimes there's only moving one person to a call. So this would be more convenient that they get one and go. So, and not, and just for the record, I've had 2 used vehicles. One fell apart on the way home. Thank God it wasn't on the highway at 65 miles an hour. And the one we have now that I'm currently running, which will still be used, is the oldest vehicle in the town fleet. And I really, at this point, think it's time. So if there's no further questions, I'll call the vote on the consent agenda. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
How we doing out there in, is there an aye and aye from Jason and Holly? Well, we'll say it passed with 4 votes anyway, so it does pass. Are they there? They're there, okay.
Yeah, Holly was muted, but Jason was not.
Okay. Well, we passed, so we have a quorum, we're good, right, Tom?
Legal opinion on that?
Oh, it passes. Minutes, September 19th, 2024. Regular meeting, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second it?
Thank you, Tim. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes. On unfinished business landfill fees for those affected by the flood, my feeling is we continue it on for now. Blake has been out on a little R&R. I think kids are out of school or something for a little bit or something, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, well-deserved. I'd like to talk to him when he gets back, and we can take that up at the next board meeting. For now, I think we just continue on with that, if that's okay? Take care, guys.
Sure, thank you.
New business,
I'm
finance.
sorry, Jeff, but, so it's gonna continue until we hear from Blake,
Right.
right? Because it was initially for October 12th?
Right.
Okay,
We'll take it meeting to meeting.
yep, sounds good.
I don't know what's coming through there. I don't have that information. New business, finance appropriation of funding. We are needing to appropriate money. I am going to call for a special Board of Selectmen meeting October 21st, which is the Board of Finance meeting, at 6:45. The purpose of this is start appropriating money. I also will, and then the Board of Finance has to do the appropriation. Then we have town meeting. We'll set the town meeting for November 7th at 7 o'clock here in Town Hall. And that will determine whether we go out for the funding. That puts in motion, these things all get approved. That puts in motion the ability to go to Wall Street. We're talking with our Wall Street barn people. Dan will give the explanation, and we will go from there. So I will set a special Board of Selectmen's meeting on October 21st at 6:45, prior to the Board of Finance meeting at 7 PM, to do what they do, and I am setting a town meeting for the November 7th.
Is the 6:45 Board of Selectmen meeting gonna be joint with the Board of Finance? Is the Board of Finance gonna be there?
It'll be our
too?
meeting first.
Right, but are they gonna be, I assume
They'll
we're
be
all
there,
gonna,
and they're gonna start at 7.
right, we're all gonna be discussing what we're
We're gonna,
doing
yeah,
with the Board of Finance. I
Well,
think it
we're
makes
gonna
sense for the
discuss
Board of
ours.
Finance to be part of that discussion.
yeah, well, they'll take up their meeting right after.
It
At-
can be part
at
of the
7.
meeting, Jeff, if you want them to.
They can do that.
I'm not sure what we're doing, but if we're appropriating funds and there's
Do
gonna
we
be some
have
plan in
the-
place, it probably makes sense for them to be there as well.
Number?
One from Dan,
Right,
I do not have that.
okay. But we have to get this in place, everything in place to go for our bond, for S&P, to get our bond rating and get our analysis and get approval for the money, and we'll do that at that meeting. All right? We got that. Next up is executive session. I entertain a motion to move into executive session to discuss pending litigation in the case of the town of Southbury versus Alan Salzman, and inviting our town attorney, Tom Kalin, in to discuss that case. How'd I get that, Tom?
Very well.
Hey, good. There.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we will go into executive session in 2:05, 2:08. And we'll be right back. Make sure nobody takes any of the chairs, Betsy.
Betsy, if you're still there, can you hear us?
I can hear you now, Jason. Hold on, you can't hear me because I don't have a microphone.
You can hear me, but you don't have a microphone?
Jason, I can hear you now.
Okay, you
Are
couldn't
you
before,
gonna
though,
have,
you were saying that?
Somebody call you from executive session so you can participate?
I didn't know we had one. I'll text Bucksbaum now.
Yeah, that would be great. And I'm not sure if Holly's still on, but if you are, Holly, maybe.
All right, I'll try to figure out how to do both at the same time. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
you, everybody.
Thank you.
I like the mini chambers.
I'll tell you what, this actually isn't a bad setup. This isn't like a bad setup for these guys. Like if we're not having a big meeting, and then everyone's on the video.
Okay, we are out of executive session. Thank you for your patience. There will be no discussion and no action on the executive session. Up next is the first Selectmen's report. Just an update, one on the Independent Police Department. The state of Connecticut approved Chief Grillo's request to terminate the resident trooper contract effective December 1st, 2024. So we should have everything wrapped up December 1st. Southbury PD received numerous qualified applications for deputy chief position. Chief Grillo and Human Resources are expected to have a recommendation before the board very soon. Early voting for the presidential election will take place Monday, October 21st to Sunday, November 3rd in room 205A, right here in Town Hall. Please go to the Town of Southbury Registrar of Voters webpage for details and for detailed information. Flood assistance and recovery updates. Since our last meeting on September 19th, 2024, Southbury continues to make considerable progress towards our recovery efforts. Thank you to Steve Schnell, Southbury Emergency Management Director, for updating the board earlier in tonight's meeting. The FEMA leadership shared with me how well we were prepared for their arrival. FEMA travels across the country for disaster relief, and I was incredibly pleased to hear that Southbury could be used as a blueprint of how to handle an emergency disaster event. I would like to thank FEMA staff assigned to Southbury. They are extremely patient and caring with those who came to the Disaster Recovery Center. The expertise they shared has been invaluable. I wish them the best as some of the staff move on to their next assignment, mostly down south. Again, they are been wonderful to our citizens, and it's been a great. They've been great. Southbury employees, as everybody knows, there's this, we want to go after more grants. So we did grant training. Dale Krupp, a leader in the field of municipal grant writing, recently provided grant writing training to 16 employees. Mr. Krupp held interviews with each department prior to the training to identify our department's key needs. The training focused on research and preparation, collecting data, preparing a budget with writing and editing process, and identifying sources of funding. My administration has been highly successful in securing grant funding. Staff members had positive feedback saying that the training will help them achieve even more success in the future. Connecticut Council of Small Towns Conference, COST, I just went to with my assistant. Yesterday, I attended the Connecticut Council of Small Towns Fall Conference. the industry leaders and government officials presented information on the relevant topics of affordable housing, emerging issues in land use, storm water management, cybersecurity, and an interesting talk was at the very end, mentally healthy workplaces, which was a very interesting. I was surprised it was too bad people didn't stay for that. It was quite interesting. And a prescription drug cost card that is being rolled is out there, and we'll have more information coming on that. Cybersecurity conference, Southbury IT Director Dave Richards and I attended Cyber Nutmeg 2024 in Hartford on October 10th. Staying current on the topics of cybersecurity is the utmost important. During this time where potential cyber attacks are now a common occurrence, threatening our identities, elections, and data. They are pretty crafty people. Interesting information comes out of this. As you know, in the past, there was not a lot of conferences attended and training. We have focused on training and conferences so that we can develop good plans in everything we do, and it's working pretty well. Next up are reports from liaisons. Justin, you're up.
None of mine have met since last meeting. Economic Development was supposed to meet last night, but they postponed the meeting.
I think they poured some concrete in the pool.
Cool.
I haven't had a chance to get over there, but my understanding they've actually poured concrete, so that's good. Jason?
Library Board met last week. A lot of what they talked about, we talked about earlier. Obviously, they have interest in the flood recovery and things that are going on. Dave Richards came to the meeting. He gave sort of a technology update of what's needed to be done with the network down there and the redesign of that, and plans for security cameras in the library. The Friends talked about the donation site at the Southbury Plaza, which seems to be booming. And I think those are sort of the main items. My other boards did not meet.
Tim?
Community Relations Task Force did not meet. Conservation Commission, they met on September 26th. Most of the conversation was damage to any of the parks. Bennett Park, Public Works did a lot of repair there. Flag Swamp Park has no access to the trail. Janie Pierce's Park, boardwalks were damaged for the flood. The earthen dam also was eroded and needs repair. The pond had its last treatment. And the conservation, or the Park and Rec Commission also met the end of last month and the 10th of September. Most of the conversation was some of the damage to the parks, and also at the last meeting, they set up a subcommittee for the splash pad. There's members of the commission that are going around and taking a look at some other splash pads in other towns and trying to get a report to Public Works for the amount that's going to be required for the splash pad.
Okay. Holly?
So the Board of Ed has resumed meeting as school has been back in session for some time. So they met on September 9th and September 23rd. There is no school tomorrow district-wide for professional development. Between those two meetings, overwhelmingly, is the superintendent's reports. They set future meetings for the remainder of the school year, so if anybody's interested, the rest of the meeting dates are set for the rest of the year. But overall, a lot of it was policy and curriculum discussions as far as any changes that are being made, and notable recognition for exceptional staff members was in the last meeting. Additionally, discussion on repair bonds. You know, the school district has quite a few bonds out there for some notable repairs to several buildings. So discussion around those repairs. So I encourage anybody to check out the videos if they're interested, or attend the meetings in the future. From what I could see, there wasn't a whole lot of attendance at either of those meetings, so you know, the community is certainly welcome to attend.
I don't know if Selectman Van Stone is still on the line. probably, if he has time, we'll just look. Jason, if you're still there, okay, he's still there, but I don't know if he's, can click on. So, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
There you go. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, and we're adjourned.